Okay, I think we can start as people continue to join. Okay, for those joining us today, let me just put on my camera to introduce myself and then we can be able to continue after that. Okay. Okay. So, for those who don't know Anchor, we are a youth led organization which we aim to empower the youth through inclusion, leadership training, and sustainable development, and also community development so that we can empower the youth to believe they can create change on their own. And today, my name is Natasha Faith. I'm the program lead here at Anchor, and I'll be leading you guys throughout the session for SDG number 9. For those who joined us last week, we were able to discuss on SDG number 8, and we had our presenters who were able to tell us more about youth empowerment and entrepreneurship and how us as the youth we can be able to drive sustainable development by building sustainable jobs and green jobs, and also give back to the community by creating decent jobs for our fellow youths. So today we're going to discuss on SDG number 9. But before I start, you guys can tell me on the comments where you're coming from, where you're joining us from, and then we can start. But the main aim of our webinar series is just to make educate us on how we can be able to drive sustainability on our own using these goals. And today we're going to discuss on SDG number 9, which is industry innovation and also infrastructure. So just type on the chat where you're joining us from, and then we can be able to continue. I think I can also invite Ivy, our executive director, to just speak a few words before we start, and we can start the session.
Yes, good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for joining us during the webinar series. I know I didn't really get a chance to speak during the first session, but we're looking forward to engaging with the participants who have already joined. And at the same breath, we hope that it will be an informative session. And we're looking forward to the engagement as well from the team that has prepared the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivy. Okay, I have Michael joining us from Syokimau. Welcome, Michael, and thank you for joining us today. Just type where you're joining us from, and we can continue as we engage with each other. Okay, I think we can start as you guys continue to type on the chat. I think you can share the screen for the slide so that I can be able to start. Oh, hi, Hilda, joining us from Kisumu. And thank you for also, you were there last week. Thank you for being with us throughout this webinar series. Yes, I think you can just go to the start of the slide. Okay, we can now start. To prevent to be able for you guys to be able to hear me clearly, I'm not going to turn on my camera. So let's just start because I know time is moving. But I've seen Grace. Thank you, Grace, for joining us. Looking forward to interact with you throughout this session. And I guess we can start with the series. So as I had said earlier, we are discussing on SDG number 9, which is building resilient infrastructure, promoting inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and fostering innovation. So when many people think about SDG number 9, they think about, roads, infrastructure, and all that. But SDG number 9 brings out so many factors from innovation and entrepreneurship. And you find that all these SDGs, funny enough, they rely on each other. We'll be throughout the session we're able to understand how SDG number 9 is going to reflect on SDG number 8, the one that we discussed last week on entrepreneurship, And throughout this, at the end of the session, all of you guys will be able to understand what is SDG number 9, the pillars it has, and also to understand how innovation and technology can support sustainable development, and also how Africa and Kenya is driving SDG number 9 in the real world and solving different problems for communities and Kenyans all over the world. And you also understand how us as the youth we can able to develop ideas to solve the challenges that are in our own community. So that is the main um, objectives for this session. So SDG number 9 helps us to answer this question: how can young people use innovation and technology to solve Africa's challenges? As I've said, the SDGs are 17 goals, and you can be able to choose which goal you want to implement also in your own life and also in your own community. And the main goals of these sustainable development goals is just to create a more peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world by 2030. And 2030 is not that far. So we still have a few time to be able to create change by that time. I know there's a new vision coming soon, but at the end of the day, we can be able to just start somewhere. And SDG number 9 helps us to understand how we can able to address future challenges that come with modernizing industries and infrastructure. Since as the community and the world continues to grow, infrastructure is increasing, industries are increasing, the world is modernizing. So the hands of trying to make it sustainable. So SDG number 9 has three pillars, which is resilient infrastructure, innovation, and sustainable industrialization. When it comes to resilient infrastructure, I'm going to share another slide. We can be able to discuss on example here in Kenya. We have the Nairobi Expressway, which I know everyone has used it at some point, either through matatus or your own personal car, and it's actually changed Kenya in a way of infrastructure. It's a good example here in Nairobi, but we also have infrastructure in rural areas whereby I know there's so many rural areas that still don't have access to modernized roads and all that, but it's increasing and it's wonderful to see. But that is a good example of infrastructure and how it's progressing. We have railways, which is now the SGR and other stuff. We have energy, which is now renewable energy. We have internet, which is Safaricom and other internet operations are growing. We have water and we have transport. That is a simple way of explaining infrastructure with SDG number 9. And I think here I can ask a question you guys can type on the chat, and that is, what infrastructure do you use on your daily life or has affected you on your daily life? You can just type on the chat. You can able to interact. For me, I think personally is roads. I can say that most of us, I think, we're going to say that. But I think that is what affects my daily life and internet, because I think we are using even internet now. And if you compare to how internet was not even available a few, let's say, years ago, maybe. Yeah, Ian has said roads and internet exactly. You can just type which infrastructure do you use in your daily life or has affected you in your daily life, and you can be able to interact through the chat. But it's wonderful to see how roads and railways is growing. I think by the time 2030 or even 2035 comes, we'll be able to see how Kenya will have grown in terms of its infrastructure, and it's wonderful to see. So just type on the chat which infrastructure affects you in your daily life, which you've been able to interact with. Okay. Another pillar is innovation. I'm just going to show pictures and then you're going to go deep into it. Innovation, a very, very good example that is recently being discussed is Konza Technopolis. And Konza Technopolis is like Africa's Silicon Savannah. It's now bringing people from tech everywhere to come and discuss new ideas and to make research of technology and how it can be able to change Africa and also change Kenya. And it's wonderful to see how it's growing. And it's also exciting to see how evolved it will be in the coming year. I know some of our team here in Anchor were able to go to the Konza Technopolis drone session that happened in March. And it was also a nice experience to be able to see how the tech is growing, especially in the AI space and in the technology space. You find a country like Rwanda is using AI in their drones to be able to identify malaria spots, and that helps communities to reduce the infection and the spreading of malaria in those communities. And it's exciting to see how Kenya wants to help the youth and bring up the ideas in growing a wonderful technological country. So I'm just going to explain a bit further. So we find that with resilient infrastructure, we've been able to see how Kenya is evolving in the Nairobi Expressway and developing rural roads. And we can also see Konza Technopolis and how it's changed the specific county that it's in. But we're able to see that innovation, we are able to bring new ideas and and improve existing ones to solve different problems. We can see here in Kenya how how M-Pesa has improved financial inclusion and digital payments. We even have Zuri in KRA. Those are the type of innovations that is driving SDG number 9, and we're able to discuss further throughout the session how AI has been able to be such an important tool with innovation. But through that, we're able to see how innovation can involve technology and how business models, communities can be able to improve their daily lives, which is through innovation and infrastructure. And another pillar, we now discussed two pillars, which is infrastructure and innovation, but another one is sustainable industrialization. With sustainable industrialization, we can be able to now look at industries and factories and how so many industries nowadays are moving forward to the sustainable way, which can be through energy, through resources, using them efficiently. And throughout the session, we'll be able to see real life case scenarios of how of some example of industries which are leading in sustainability, from manufacturing through processing through providing these resources. And sustainable industrialization helps businesses and industries grow, obviously sustainably, but they are able to now create decent jobs, use resources efficiently, and the end reduce pollution. Because at the end of the day, sustainability means we are using our resources in a way that future generations will be able to enjoy these resources. So those are the three main pillars for SDG number 9, which you have innovation, resilient infrastructure, and sustainable industrialization, which I've stated here that infrastructure combined with industries and innovation leads to sustainable development. So those are the things that you can remember from this session, the three pillars of SDG number 9, which is resilient infrastructure, sustainable industrialization, and innovation. Is there anyone who has a question or wants to add on something before we continue? You can just raise your hand, raise there's you can just raise your hand or text on the chat before we continue. Okay. Now, what will life look like without infrastructure or technology? We've seen how SDG creates foundation for development, how infrastructure supports access to transport, roads, communication, economic opportunities, and then we get to see how innovation and industrialization now creates jobs and improves productivity. You can see how it's interconnected, how we've said infrastructure combined with innovation, combined with industrialization leads to sustainable development. We can be able to see that right now our life is very, very easy compared. We now have technology brought so many, made a, has brought so many advantages in our lives. As I had interacted with you guys saying you can just type any infrastructure or any technology you think has made a difference in your life. And I think obviously with roads technology and internet has done a really, really good thing. But it's just a nice question to know what will life look like without infrastructure or technology at the end of the day. So, why is this SDG important to young people? We as young people we have we have the creativity and the energy to develop different solutions and improve lives, and we also have the energy to accelerate sustainable development. Everyone here is has the dream of being an innovator, a future entrepreneur, whether you're a student, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're working, you have that zeal or that interest to just create something, even if it's for yourself and even for your community. And this SDG matters to us because it's something that affects us in our daily lives, and it's something that we can make easier for everyone else. So many successful innovators start with young people who identify different problems and creates practical solutions. And we'll be able to see how, with the case studies of how different future entrepreneurs and innovators have been able to create change through technology and through innovation. And that is why it matters to young people. All this SDG matters to us because we are the ones who can be able to create change and bring it directly to everyone around us. But also it helps us to understand, why does SDG matter? Why is SDG number 9 important? SDG number 9 is important because, number one, innovation drives economic growth. We've seen how Kenya is growing, Africa is growing, meaning that industries will continue to grow, jobs will continue to be created, and that is economic growth. At the end of the day, trying to industrialize our country or our communities, doing it sustainably is important because at the end of the day, it helps to solve problems like from climate change, food insecurity, disaster response. And such as Africa has the world's youngest population, innovation helps us to address unemployment, improve access to healthcare, strengthen agriculture. Because as we continue with the session, I'll be able to introduce you to how people are using AI in agriculture, how people are using AI in climate resilience, how people are using AI to drive to improve, to reduce food insecurity. So we'll be able to see how all this technology and infrastructure are interconnected when solving big Africa's challenges. So that's why not only SDG 9, that is why most of this SDG matters. And yeah, that's why we are educating you guys here today. So I'm going to go to the next slide. If you have anything to raise, just interact with me here throughout the session, and before, and we can have, we can just interact with each other as I continue. So we're going to discuss on, okay. So I had discussed on this pillar, which is sustainable industries. So sustainable industries for manufacturing businesses, sustainable production, mainly focuses on using resources efficiently, but can also have like cleaner technology and renewable energy and circular economy, which now comes to using the resources as waste and obviously managing the waste well. That is what encompasses in sustainable industries. And yeah, so from those three pillars, we're now going to move into emerging topics that will help us to understand SDG number 9 better. So there are two topics I'm going to discuss today, which is AI for good, and another topic which will be green technology. So all of you guys know about AI. Many people think AI is mostly ChatGPT or Claude or all that. But you're able to see how mostly in Africa, how people are using AI for so many things. As I had said earlier, how people in Rwanda are using AI to fight malaria in communities using drones. And also we have here in Kenya how Kenya Wildlife are using also AI in drones to help in monitoring and conservation. And you can be able to see how AI is being used for good. We also use AI in different ways, but AI at the end of the day is there to help us be more creative, I can say. But we're going to able to see how AI is reflected or is interconnected with SDG number 9 through technology. And in this topic, we're going also to answer the question of how can digital intelligence solve sustainable challenges. As I had discussed, that AI can help us monitor climate change, improve agriculture, manage waste, improve healthcare, and predict disasters. We have an example, I think it's upcoming, I'm not that sure, here in Kenya, but I want to use AI to detect floods and drought and be able to inform people in rural areas on how whether it's coming, especially in places that have high heat and famine and all that. It can be able to really monitor climate change, which can they can be able to be informed using the SMS. And these are things that are being started by the youth. And that just explains to us how we have the power and the idea of bringing a change for our community and also for ourselves. And I'll be able to show you an example of how it's improving agriculture here in Africa. But before we continue, I have something we can interact with, which if you had AI for one day, what problem would you solve? You can just type on the chat. If you had AI for one day, what will you solve? Anything. If you just had the power to use AI to solve anything, to solve any problem that is in the world, what will you solve? You can just type whatever you think you can solve. It can also be yourself, the way you use AI maybe for work, for school. You can just type anything you think. If you had AI for one day, what problem would you solve? As I move to the next slide. Lorna is saying insecurity. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. Would you like to tell us, Lorna, how you'll solve insecurity using AI? Okay, no worries. Okay, that's unique. Using AI to solve insecurity. Okay. You can just think of anything and just type on the chat. You can able to see how people have different ideas everywhere. Okay.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi, Lorna.
Okay, what I mean is for AI to solve insecurity, maybe in a community, for example, maybe crimes and violence, and these insecurities being caused by unemployment, AI can help, but it should be used as a supportive tool for people and institutions.
Okay. That's a
Yeah.
good take. Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Okay, you can just continue thinking and typing as I continue to the next slide of an example of how people are using AI in agriculture. Now we have an example of Planet Nuru. Okay. So, how farmers are driving innovation using Planet Village Nuru app. So, Village Nuru app number one is free. So, it's very convenient for communities, especially in rural areas. And it's an offline capable AI mobile assistant named after Swahili word for light. It helps farmers and agricultural workers to diagnose crop pests and diseases such as cassava and maize directly in the field using a smartphone camera. It was developed by Penn State University in partnership with the UN Food and Agriculture Organization and the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, and it's deployed widely across sub-Saharan Africa, including Kenya. So, okay, I see Richie is saying industrial efficiency audit. That's really, really true. Personally, I use the normal ChatGTP one, but that is really convenient in terms of auditing. And yeah, that's a really good example. Okay, just continue typing what you would want to solve a problem with using AI. It can be anything, it can be even poverty. In a way you think you can use AI towards that. I know some people are already trying to find ways of using AI. Has so much capability, but it comes for how you can use it, as Lorna said, how you can use it to solve the problem. And I think it's nice to see how Planet Village Nuru is helping farmers, and it's accessible, and how they can be able to detect pests, especially for crops. And it helps, you see how it's interconnected with SDG number two. SDG number two helps to helps solves is an SDG which focuses on food hunger and all that and food insecurity. And it just shows how all these SDGs are interconnected and how they can solve each other's challenges and problems. But another good thing I can talk about is people say that AI, you can be replaced by AI, but I think AI can accelerate sustainable development, by increasing efficiency, reducing costs, improving lives, rather than replacing people. AI works best as a tool and supports human creativity, innovation, and problem solving. And you get to see how examples like M-Pesa and also Planet Village Nuru and Safaricom Zuri are just few examples of how you can utilize AI in an innovation in financial inclusion, agriculture, and customer service. So, AI at the end of the day is just something that can support your human creativity. And it's really impressive to see how people all over the world are coming up with ideas on how they can solve these challenges. Is If you have anything to raise or any suggestion, you can just feel free to interact with us as we continue to a second topic that also helps us to understand how SDG number 9 it's just not about roads only. It has something unique, it has something deep that us as the youths we can be able to use. So the next topic is green technology. It encompasses so many things from innovative products, system, processes that are designed to protect the environment but also improve people's lives. Because I believe that in anything we do, as the world continues to grow, we can do it sustainably. It focuses on stuff like reducing pollution, conserving natural resources, promoting clean energy, developing sustainable solutions, and under this SDG, green technology demonstrates how innovation can drive economic growth while building a cleaner, more resilient, and sustainable future. It shows us that as long as we are driving economic growth, we can also create a sustainable future. We can do it more cleaner, more resilient, and it demonstrates how technology and innovation can expand access to clean energy while improving lives. And I think it also answers this question of what physical technologies are creating a sustainable future and how can the young people be part of them. And that's how I was talking about renewable energy, clean mobility, circular economy, and cleaner production. And now I can even talk about how, for me personally, I think an infrastructure that has improved my life. I use electric boda everywhere I go. If you're in Kenya, you know what I'm talking about. I use it everywhere. I think it's convenient, especially with time. But at the end of the day, it's a physical technology or infrastructure that has improved my life. So, and it's something I experience every single day. But we are able to see. Okay, we are able to see how we have solar panels and electric vehicles and recycling and smart technology, and how these physical technologies are creating a sustainable future. And that now reflects to how infrastructure is now becoming green. It's now becoming sustainable. And a good example here I'm going to talk about is M-Copper. I know even last time when we were doing the session last week, we talked about M-Pesa a lot, but obviously M-Pesa is it's when people look at M-Pesa from people who are not in Kenya, they see M-Pesa as really something better, something good. Maybe us here in our country, we have obviously some limitations with M-Pesa, but M-Pesa changes so many people's life, especially in rural areas with financial inclusion, and now M-Copper with solar energy. And that is a good example that I'm going to talk about. But here in Kenya, we have M-Copper, which is a technology company that provides affordable pay-as-you-go solar energy systems to households and small communities. Now, instead of paying the full full cost upfront. Customers make a small mobile payments through M-Pesa using their own system. And for people who are in rural areas, this is something they can use. This is something that is convenient for them. And at the end of the day, we're now making this accessible. We're now making energy and this type of technologies accessible to people in rural areas, because at the end of the day, these goals explain to us how everyone deserves a sustainable way of living. And I'm going to show a good example, a picture. I'm going to show a picture of a household using M-Copper. I know you guys have seen M-Copper everywhere, especially in rural areas. They have even M-Copper phones and M-Copper, so many M-Copper technologies they have. But here in Kenya, we have M-Copper, which I've said is a pay-as-you-go solar energy system, which is really convenient in the rural areas, and it makes um, clean, affordable energy accessible to everyone, especially people in rural areas. And another good example, which is now going to combine, you see how I'm combining different pillars from resilient infrastructure to innovation to sustainable industrialization, which through that you can be able to understand how and what and why SDG number 9 is important. So another good example I'm going to talk about is now recycling, now the environment aspect, because at the end of the day, as the world is continuing to grow, we are being urged to make it sustainable. And now another good example is Mr. Green. So they're combining innovation with sustainable manufacturing. So Mr. Green is a Kenyan recycling company that transforms plastic waste value chain by collecting, sorting, and recycling plastic waste into high quality recycled materials, and then they're now being used by manufacturers. So at the end of the day, it's like a circular economy resource way of them using, because they're reducing plastic pollution, creating green jobs, and supporting circular economy, whereby waste is being turned into something valuable. Now, through this technology, they are obviously driving recycling and making partnership with local waste collectors. And we are able to see that Mr. Green is demonstrating how innovation and sustainable industrialization can drive economic growth, but also protect the environment. So this is a picture of their collectibles, of the plastic they collect before turning it into resources that other manufacturers can use. But Mr. Green Africa is a very, very good example of how they are promoting sustainable industrialization and sustainable manufacturing, and also now promoting recycling and waste management. And also showing us how waste is gold. And that is a really, really good example of showing us sustainable industrialization. Okay, I'm going to move to the next slide. But all in all, those are the few examples that I've been able to come up with to be able to show you guys. There are so many examples that are everywhere in the world that you can be able to see. There's so many people driving SDG number 9 through their different ways of solving these problems. And these few examples from M-Pesa, Mr. Green, Planet Nuru, everyone else who is driving this goal is showing us how important it is to drive economic growth, but also do it sustainably. That is the main agenda. So the next slide, I'm going to interact with you guys again. So we're going to be able to see, where do the youth fit in. You don't have to be a tech genius to innovate. You can have an idea, identify the problem, collaborate with people around you, learn a type of skill, build a solution, and then share your idea. Because at the end of the day, you only have to start. Like, innovation starts with you seeing a problem and finding ways to solve that problem. You can able to see someone like some people like, let's say, Planet Nuru, were able to to incorporate technology in agriculture. Another thing, it shows how people in rural areas, few of them have access to this type of technologies that we are able to have, and they're able to have that idea and identify a problem, which is obviously the pests and all that, collaborate with the community, And also for them, they're learning a skill of how they can be able to obviously be accessible to this technology and also how to use them. And they'll be able to build a solution and share that idea with everyone around the world who can be able to also use the same idea or also use the same app in identifying any other problem. It just shows us we fit in these criteria. We can be able to identify any other idea. So if you have an idea today that you like to do or implement, all you have to do is start. All you have to do is start, share it with the world, collaborate with people around you. And at the end of the day, you'll be able to solve a challenge in your life or with the community around you. And also just do it sustainably. So that shows us where we fit in this SDG number 9. Okay. I'm going to move to the next slide. Remember, if you have any query, anything you like to add, just feel free to interact with us. Okay. So we're almost done with all the content I've been sharing. But there are three ways to just remember this SDG number 9, which is build, create, and innovate. Just have to build resilient and inclusive infrastructure. That's why I was talking about how, as long as Nairobi is growing, Nakuru is growing, other towns are growing, it's also important for rural areas to have access to modernized roads and all that. And we have to create, which is now we are talking about how industries are creating green jobs, and we're able to see how like Mr. Green is collaborating with local waste collectors, how they're able to provide jobs in all the industries and all that. And then we have innovate, which is now us, the youths, who use ideas and technology to solve these problems. And those are three ways you can remember SDG number 9, which is just to build, create, and innovate. So there are three things that can help you remember this type of goal. But at the end of the day, SDG reminds us that innovation, resilient infrastructure, and sustainable industries are a foundation to a prosperous and sustainable future. As technology continues to shape our world, we see that young people have a unique opportunity to use AI. As we were saying earlier, we have AI with us. We just have to use it wisely and creatively. We have green technology. All of us are creative in a way. We can be able to be entrepreneurs to solve these real world challenges. And we know that every idea, no matter how small it is, you have the potential of creating a lasting impact. And we believe that if you collaborate with anyone near you and think sustainably, you can be able to drive SDG number 9, which is to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industries. Okay. I'm going to have another interactive session before we answer any questions you guys might have. And that is, if you could invent one thing to change Kenya, what would you create? This is interesting because we have so many issues in Kenya. So if you could invent one thing that you could use to change Kenya, what would you create? If you could invent one thing to change Kenya, what would you create? Okay. A system that could fight corruption. Very, very important. I think Kenya corruption levels are just increasing every single day, the moment we wake up. So I think if it's one thing I agree with Faith is how we could change corruption in Kenya, especially starting with us ourselves and our leaders and all that. But if it's something, it's a really, really good suggestion. Thank you, Faith. Anything you have in mind. You can even say unemployment. Unemployment is a big issue, a challenge in Kenya. What can we invent to solve unemployment in Kenya? Something that you can just invent and everyone can just go maybe to an app and have a job by tomorrow and fight unemployment. It can be anything. It only starts with you thinking and finding a way to make it innovative. So just type anything you could invent. Okay, Dorcas, you've said a manual, low water mechanical washing and rapid drying kit designed for girls in boarding schools or informal settlements to safely wash and sanitize reusable pads without facing social stigma. This is really nice, Dorcas. Thank you for sharing it. I think this is really important. Not everyone is able to afford a pad. Obviously, as a woman, if you are even as a man, not everyone, especially in rural areas. And I think this is a really, really good idea, especially for girls in boarding schools and informal settlements too. And having a manual or water mechanical washing and rapid drying kit can be really, really sustainable and convenient. That is a really good suggestion. Thank you, Dorcas. Richie has also talked about the same biodegradable pads and diapers. So true. If you see so many of these um, of the pads and the diapers that are discarded, there are just so many. And I think that is a good aspect in terms of environmental conservation and management. And if it's something that can solve, the waste dumping and soil contamination and all that. And I think that is something that is really, really not convenient in Kenya, especially with pads and diapers and e-waste. Those are the three main wastes that are usually very, very inconvenient. So that is a really other good suggestion. Thank you, Richie. It's something we could invent in Kenya and can able to solve with the waste and the contamination if they're biodegradable. You see, these are ideas you guys can even start and grow into something big, not only in Kenya but Africa too. So these are good suggestion. You can just continue telling us your suggestion. We can have maybe one other suggestion before we finish up. I think we can. If you have any other suggestion, you can just type it. We'll be able to discuss it. But I think that is the end for the educating and all the content I've been able to share with you guys today. And as I had said earlier, if you want to remember everything, I know I've talked a lot and sometimes too fast, but there are just three things you need to remember, which is build, create, and innovate. You have the power to build something inclusive, and it can be any infrastructure in your community, in your town. You can be able to create sustainable industries and jobs, and you can be able to be innovative and creative and use ideas and technology to solve your daily problems for yourself and also for your community. Those are three things you can use to remember whatever I've talked about today. And I think with the content, I'll be able to stop from there. I'll be able to take any questions you guys have with anything I've been talking about this whole session. But also remember, if you also want to see what us as Anchor, we've been able to contribute towards sustainability, check out our sustainability report. It's on our website. It will also be shared on as I stop sharing, it will be shared here on the screen, which you can be able to scan and just be able to see what you've been doing throughout the few years. It has been shared here on the chat. There's a link. Check out our sustainability report. Look at what we've been able to do throughout all these SDGs. And we have it's okay. My apologies. It's okay. We have our next session next week. Again, another SDG. Remember, this is a webinar series throughout the month. Last week, we were able to talk about SDG number 8. We had two of our presenters, Kathy and Faith, who did an amazing job. And next week, we're going to have SDG number 15. So if you really want to learn more about SDGs and how you can be able to implement it for yourself and also for your community, you can join us. And there's no worries. Yes, you can get an update of the last two sessions. I think kindly our administrator can share it on our chat. Oh yeah, he has seen it. Okay. So we have the PowerPoint, the link to the sessions we had last week, and also this will be shared so that you guys can have it. And so remember, at the end of the session, at the end of the webinar, you'll be able to have your own e-certificate of you being able to attend our awareness training program. And yeah, I think I can take a few questions before we close. Any questions you guys have, any suggestion, anything you'd like to share with us for SDG number 9, or also what you've been doing to drive SDG number 9 or any other SDG, you can just open up your mic and tell us anything, or even on the chat or anything else before we close.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. My name is Grishon. Yeah, I'm the one who's apologizing for missing the first and this session, but as the last one, um, I was interested in this program because I think it aligned with what I do in my rural community. Um, I have a background in design, so I have been using human-centered design and social impact to create sustainable and resilient communities. So I started an organization called Side Eye, which means Social Impact Design Eye, which is basically the things that are on the periphery that most governments don't look at, yet they're really important. So my first goal is on education, where I am raising funds and resources to rehabilitate our rural public primary schools because I believe education is the basis of civilization and there is no fair ground between the people studying in these schools and compared to what a standard school probably a private school offers. So there's no fair ground in life, and that's why I feel like the entire SDG is like a interconnected web. Right now, we're looking at innovation and sustainability, and at as a designer to promote and um, create this awareness.
Thank you so much, Grishon. That is a really good suggestion. Also, kindly type your organization so that all of us can be able to check it out and just see what you are doing. And I love the way you say that education is really important. It's even what we are doing today. I believe that if you're able to make yourself aware about something, especially with sustainability, you can be able to know why it's important and start something you've been wanting to do. And yeah, just type your company and everything you'd like us to see. Everyone here can be able to just see what you're doing and also support you with anything that we can be able to do on our end, plus everyone else here. And also, we love what you're doing in the rural community and with schools and all that. And we appreciate you joining, even if it's, yeah, he has shared it on the chat. You guys can check it out and see what he's been doing, especially as a designer. And yes, we look forward to seeing you on our next week, Wednesday, the same time on our next SDG session. Thank you so much, Grishan.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else before we close? I think we're going to end the session here, but I'm ending with encouraging each and every one of us that if you have something innovative, start it. You have the power to make a change for yourself and for your community, and also to drive the same SDG here in Kenya and also in Africa. And all you have to do is start. And we want to thank you, each and every one of you, for joining and taking a time for learning anything sustainability related. Thank you, Faith, and looking forward to seeing you guys on our next session next Wednesday. And yes, looking forward to it. Kindly see all our documents, all our workbooks, our reports, all posted on the chat. Thank you, Hilda. And you can be able to see what you have been doing. Thank you for everyone who was able to interact. Also, everyone who was able to join. And I'm looking forward to interacting with you guys again. If you want to also contact us on Anchor, kindly check our website and you can be able to interact with us. If there are no, thank you, Ivy. If there are not any other questions, I think we can end there. And looking forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday.